We've got to be better and more locked in from the jump. Thank you.
They had just 15 assists for you guys as a team today.
The moving truck rumbled away from the modest house on Elm Street as Caitlin Clark's phone buzzed with a message that froze her in place and stirred something deep within her. A mix of heartbreak and fierce determination she hadn't felt since her college championship days. It was a cold December evening in 2024, the kind of night when the world feels still, and she was scrolling idly through social media when a single photo cut through the noise. There, sitting on a curb surrounded by the fading light of winter, was her former high school coach, Tom Mitchell. His hands, once strong and sure, the same hands that had clapped encouragement from the sidelines and sketched plays on whiteboards, were now trembling around a battered cardboard box filled with mementos from 3 decades of coaching. His house had been foreclosed. Caitlin stared at the image, disbelief clouding her chest. This was the man who had taught her to believe in herself when she was just a scrawny 15-year-old with oversized dreams, who had believed in her talent when no one else did, and who had instilled in her a sense of discipline, humility, and courage that shaped not just her game, but her entire being. How could the man who had lifted so many others be left to fall like this? Tom Mitchell had been more than a coach. He had been a mentor, a father figure to countless young athletes at Dowling Catholic High School between 2016 and 2020. His small home on Elm Street had been both a sanctuary and a command center, where he analyzed game tapes late into the night, wrote recommendation letters by the dim glow of a desk lamp, and kept a carefully preserved scrapbook of every newspaper article featuring his players' achievements, especially Caitlin's. What no one realized was that beneath his calm, encouraging demeanor, he had been quietly drowning in debt since his wife, Margaret, was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 3 years earlier. Her care had consumed every penny of his pension and every ounce of his strength. He had remortgaged his home 3 times, sold off nearly everything of value, and spent sleepless nights choosing between his wife's medication and the mortgage payment. The foreclosure notice had been the final blow, a lifeless document that gave him 90 days to pay £34,000 or lose the home that had carried 3 decades of laughter, victory, and love. When a local journalist posted the photo with the caption explaining his circumstances, it spread like wildfire across social media. Coach Tom Mitchell, who has guided dozens of athletes to college scholarships, evicted due to medical debt, the post read. Caitlin's heart pounded. This was not some distant tragedy, this was personal. He had once driven her to tournaments when her parents couldn't, stayed late to refine her jump shot, and offered words that stuck with her long after she left high school. Champions aren't made when things go right. They're made when everything goes wrong and they still choose to fight. Those words had carried her through defeats, through the brutal grind of collegiate basketball, and through the intense scrutiny of her professional career. Now, standing in her luxurious flat far from Des Moines, Caitlin realized that those lessons weren't just about the game. They were about moments like this. Without a second thought, she grabbed her keys and drove through the cold night to Elm Street. When she arrived, she found him sitting in his old pickup truck, his shoulders heavy with resignation. The foreclosure notice fluttered against the doorframe, a cruel symbol of all he had lost. Caitlin approached quietly, her breath visible in the frosty air. When he looked up, confusion flickered across his face before it softened into a weary smile. "Caitlin, you didn't have to come," he murmured, his voice hoarse, but she shook her head. "You were there for me when no one else was," she said. "Now it's my turn." Within 24 hours, Caitlin had posted the story to her millions of followers. Donations flooded in from former students, fans, and even professional athletes. Sports networks picked up the story, turning it into a national conversation about the hidden struggles of educators and the crushing costs of long-term healthcare. Within a week, the GoFundMe surpassed its goal 5-fold. But for Caitlin, it wasn't about the money. It was about dignity, about giving back to the man who had shaped her life. She visited him every day that week, bringing
part of that game, getting us that lead back. And so just making sure that we're just getting downhill, getting open sprays, and just attacking.
On the passenger seat of Coach Tom Mitchell's weathered pickup truck rested a manila folder, its edges frayed from decades of use, containing 30 years' worth of handwritten notes, player statistics, and coaching records, fragments of a life dedicated to shaping young athletes. When Caitlin Clark arrived and parked behind his truck, the sight of her old mentor sitting alone, shoulders heavy with defeat, stirred something deep within her. She walked quietly towards the driver's side window, her breath visible in the cold Iowa air. When Coach Mitchell saw her, surprise flickered across his tired face before turning into embarrassment. He rolled down the window slowly, his voice trembling as he whispered, "Caitlin, what are you doing here?" She swallowed hard before replying, "I saw the news, Coach. I came as soon as I could." He looked away, eyes glistening, and muttered, "I'm sorry you had to see this. I never wanted any of my players to know. You've got your own life now, your own career to worry about." But Caitlin shook her head and crouched beside the truck so she could look directly into his eyes. "Do you remember what you used to tell us about teamwork?" she asked softly. He gave a faint smile, repeating his old mantra almost unconsciously. "A team that doesn't take care of each other isn't really a team at all." Caitlin nodded, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. "Exactly, Coach. You're still part of my team, and teams take care of each other." What happened next was something neither of them could have predicted. Caitlin didn't just offer to cover a few bills or help him find temporary housing. She made a decision that would forever change both their lives. "Coach," she said, her tone firm and resolute, "you're not losing your home. Not today, not ever. I'm taking care of the mortgage, and I'm going to make sure you and Mrs. Mitchell have everything you need, for as long as you need it." His eyes welled with tears as he shook his head in disbelief. "Caitlin, I can't let you do that. It's too much. I won't be a charity case." But Caitlin smiled gently and replied, "This isn't charity, Coach. This is gratitude. You gave everything to me when I had nothing but a dream. You taught me to fight, to lead, to believe in myself when no one else did. Now it's my turn to give back." Her words carried the same conviction she had once displayed on the basketball court. Fierce, fearless, and full of purpose. Within days, Caitlin's act of generosity had evolved into something much greater than personal repayment. She founded the Coach Mitchell Mentorship Fund, a foundation dedicated to supporting educators and coaches who had spent their lives building young people's futures, only to find themselves struggling financially in their later years. The fund would help cover medical expenses, housing costs, and emergency needs for those who had sacrificed their own stability for the sake of their students. As news of Caitlin's gesture spread, it ignited a movement of compassion across the sports and education communities. Former players from Coach Mitchell's 30-year career began reaching out, sharing stories of how he had transformed their lives, helping secure scholarships, offering emotional support during family crises, or simply believing in them when no one else did. What began as one player's act of gratitude soon became a collective response from an entire generation of athletes whose lives had been touched by the quiet strength of one selfless man. The mentorship fund grew rapidly, fueled by donations from former students, professional athletes, and even local businesses inspired by Caitlin's example. More than just financial assistance, it became a network of connection